Good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be here with all of you. As a Punekar, for me, it's a matter of great pride to be a part of this festival, and also because, we're all passionate readers and authors. Particularly delighted to be alongside this wonderful panel of fine minds from the publishing industry with deep insights into the dynamics of publishing and some vision about the future as well of the world of books. Books, as we know, they originate from the author's pen, with ideas that they develop with due research, some going deep into their own, creating that manuscript, sometimes using their own experience, but giving that manuscript fruition as a real book that can reach readers, educating them, entertaining them, informing them. That bridge between author and reader, that role is played by the publisher. It's a very huge responsibility and a very noble initiative as well. And then supporting the publisher are literary agents, commissioning editors who spot new talent, nurture old talent, and connect us, authors, with the publisher. Howsoever noble and responsible this job and initiative might be, ultimately it is a business. So the economics of it, the demand and supply, will always be relevant. As we all know, the reading habit has been on the decline, and the volume of business has therefore taken a hit. In the recent years, some big names have folded, but at the same time, there are some names in publishing, in traditional publishing, which are doing extremely well. The titles they bring out, the new authors, and they're tapping into deep into reading preferences, etc. And so they kind of act as beacons of hope for us authors. So let's see what the situation is like and what the future looks like. And but before we start that, maybe just to kick off the discussion, a quick opening remarks, the three of you. What attracted you to traditional publishing? What made you join this industry, and the vision that you had when you started on this career path? Has that been borne out so far, and do you see it continuing into the future? Maybe we start with the publisher himself. Vishal.
I had a request to start with that video first.
We
had to launch that.
So,
before I answer this question, a very interesting question, we take this opportunity to launch a book trailer of a book which is coming up. So with all your permission and your permission, may we start that, a small trailer. My author had to leave, so he told me that please you do the honors. So he has made a wonderful video trailer of a book, The Sun, the Moon and the Love. So may I request somebody to please start the video trailer. Thank you very much. This book is available on our stall. If you find time, you can just go through it and pick up the book. It's a very interesting book. Now, to answer a question, why did we start with this publishing house and with all, Vishwakarma Publication is a group of educational institutes. We have our own university named Vishwakarma University, then VIT College, which is a very well-known engineering college in India. And while interacting with all the students, we always felt that there is a need to have some additional reading for them other than academics, because when they go for jobs, these are some questions, other than academics, what is it that they are going to do? So taking that into the consideration, we started a publishing house which could publish books which would be an additional reading for them. So we started with all non-fiction titles which could be useful for them, and then later on we started adding. When we came to know how things are coming up and when we started going to the market, we got to know about fiction, and now we are doing more of fiction also. So that is how the entire thing has started up as Vishwakarma Publication with now 600 titles, and this is also our 10th year. The way PILF is entering a 10th year, 2013, this is our 10th year. So we are very proud that a Pune based publisher coming up with 600 titles in 2 languages. One is English and another is Marathi. And because our students who are coming from rural areas to our colleges, they, it's difficult for them to many a times read an English book. So we do a lot of translations of good English books in fiction as well as non-fiction for them to read. All our books which are published are in all our libraries. They have to be in our libraries for them to read. So we have a separate section of Vishwakarma Publication books for them to read. So, that's how we started.
Wonderful. That's really wonderful. Nice. What would you like to say?
Sure. So firstly, I'd just like to say that, they probably made the two of us sit over here because they wanted color coordinated people sitting here. But, of course, on a lighter note. See, what I'd like to say is that the work of a literary agent will only, work to great fruition if it is in the traditional publishing space. Because if you are working, with self-publishing houses, then that is something that an author can do at their own end as well. Why do they require a literary agent? So, as I've said many times earlier too, that when I wrote my first book, The Bear of Putras, and it did really well, I was invited to a lot of literary festivals. And what I realized over there at that point of time was that there were a lot of other new voices, young voices, emerging voices that were coming out, but probably not getting the right platform. Because, the only kind of debut authors that you were finding were probably authors who were successful in other spheres of life and were now writing a book. So say a Yuvraj Singh writing a book or a Kapil Sibal writing a book. And I just thought that in India we have so much of talent, and it would be a pity that it goes waste. So there are obviously 2 things that you could do. That you could obviously crib about it, which is fine, or you could try and do something about it as well. So fortunately for us, we took the latter into consideration, not too far behind, as Vishal said. He's in his 10th year, we are in our 9th, and we have had the honor of successfully pitching 936 books till date. So
phenomenal, really.
Thank you. So I think we've been lucky, because as I always say that it's the author who brings the story.
Yeah.
It's the mind of the author, it's their creation. We just happen to be in a very favorable and enviable position where we get that story. It's easier to say, oh, this is good, than actually make it good. So I think a lot of credit should go to the authors in India who come up with such wonderful stories. And I think that till such time, India has, since time immemorial, been a land of stories. And till such time that we have these stories and storytellers with us, publishing in India will continue to thrive.
Great. That's really great. Rashmi?
So I joined publishing in 2008 when there was no concept of self-publishing. It was traditional publishing all the way. I just completed my post-graduation in English literature. I lived, breathed books. So, and the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing, and why I would still want to stay in traditional publishing is that, in traditional publishing, you can create your own book idea. You can come up with a concept, discuss it with somebody who you think might be able to write a book on it, or say, consult someone like him who can be like, the medium to get the right author. And that book idea starts with you, and you develop it and you bring it out, and then that becomes a success. That gives a totally different kind of kick, which I don't think I can find anywhere else. So that is my reason.
The excitement is almost palpable,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. Yeah, great. But the entire world has just been coming out of the shadows of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that has impacted most businesses across the world, and publishing is, I suppose, not exempt from that, from the effects of the pandemic. The kinds of titles that are coming out, the number of titles that are coming out per time period, all of that, I suspect, has changed, as has the way of doing business as well, also in publishing. So what are your reads from that, and any lessons that you can take from this, learning from the pandemic and into the future? Vishal? Yeah.
I'll first make a disclaimer that this is my personal experience and whatever I have gone through it. So do not relate it with any other publishers. Very difficult years, 2 years. We, all of a sudden, it's very difficult to talk also. All of a sudden we had to stop the entire publishing. No printing, no distribution. And with God's grace, we sailed through because the backing of our entire group, which was there, because there were so many employees, and nobody has been, removed from it. For 2 years, we had to take care of them.
Really awesome.
So that was our priority, that our team remains with us. So we stopped printing everything, we stopped distributing everything, because there was no point, everything was at standstill. So no sales for 2 years, so the biggest problem. Then when it all started, we were all happy and things started fast. For 2 months, I think it was February, March, April onwards, it started everything. And we thought everything will go fine. And initial 2-3 months, because there was a gap of 2 years, the distribution started very fast. But again after 4 months, it got standstill because school started and all booksellers started selling school books.
School books.
See, this industry, there are very few booksellers in India who sells exclusively trade books. We call this as trade books. Rest of the booksellers are a combination of trade books and school books. School books are their cash cows. So when the school season gets over, they come because there is no customer for that for the whole year. Then they start selling these books. So that started, and because that started, the entire world started printing, and there was a shortage of paper. Globally, there was a shortage of paper. So the entire paper were exported out of India. They were all exported out of India because they were getting better price in dollars, and we were not getting paper over here. So the paper cost rose such that we, at what price should we, mark our books at? What should be the price of the book? So if we print now, then the price would be too high. So will it be affordable for people to buy? So that was the biggest challenge. Everybody had to increase the prices, not only us. There were difficulty, even newspaper agent companies didn't have paper to print newspapers. So that was all that difficult. Now again it has settled down to a benchmark that the prices may not increase much, and we've started. But this is how it has all happened. Now again we are seeing the market to rise because the school season has got over, and again the bookstores are started keeping the books. But in this whole episode, now this is the fact, there are even bookstores which have closed down. There are even distributors which have closed down. So it's very difficult to get books in the market. to keep books in the bookstores, because now bookstore people wants money what they have not got in 2 years. So they are keeping only those books where the demand is, where I go on a bookstore and I say, give me this book, give me that book, only those books they are keeping. So it becomes very difficult to place in such situations the books. So it is with the help of the authors. I'm taking more time because this is very important point that everybody should know, and I think they would also agree. So this is where we always request authors, wherever in whichever cities you are staying, please go to the bookstores, talk to them, tell them to keep your books, get all your friends over there and tell them to buy books. So there's a rotation. If the bookseller is going to survive, the author and publisher will survive. So we have to take care of the booksellers. Because Amazon is not going to help you much. They will run away one day, I know. But it's only booksellers, because they are there from us. They are there for so many years. So we have to take care of them. We have to take care of their family. That is what I always feel, that a bookseller has a pivotal role in this entire industry.
True. And in spite of all that adversity, Vishwakarma has stood up again and sponsored this the Pune International Festival. Really well done, remarkable story, remarkable.
I think, why don't you answer then, Arun?
Okay. So my answer again, as he said, is a personal experience, and I dedicate my answer to the love for books that Indian readers have. So when the pandemic started, of course, it was like a complete shutdown. We were all very insecure, as all of you here might have faced. Most of us were very insecure about our jobs, what will happen to publishing, etc., etc. But there is always one thing that Indians are famous for: innovation, jugaad. So people got together, our team got together, we did online lit fests, and also another point is that because books are not considered essential goods, they couldn't even be delivered during the pandemic. You can't even order. But then we see the sudden spike in e-book sales. And I'm not just talking about English books, I'm talking about vernacular languages. So just to tell you a little about my company, because the introduction, they got it wrong. I work for Amaryllis, which is an imprint of Manjul Publishing House. Manjul is a leader as far as translations of bestsellers, international bestsellers are concerned, and we publish in 9 Indian languages. So usually the vernacular, you don't see a good number as far as sales figures for e-books are concerned. But during the pandemic, we saw a sharp spike there. So what I mean to say is that there is so much love for reading that not even the pandemic could stop it. So then, even though physical books were not selling, e-books, audiobooks started selling. So of course, for the first wave and in between in the second wave, we did suffer because we couldn't print books, but otherwise things were okay. In fact, we connected much more with our readers than we did pre-pandemic. And now it is like more work than pre-pandemic for us. The difference is that people are not really looking for fiction, they're looking for non-fiction. We have gone through so much stress during these past 2 years that they want books that will help them. And that is why this new fad for non-fiction books. That's my take on it. And again, I want to say it is only and only because of the Indian readers' love for books that we have sustained despite OTT platforms.
True.
So I think my experience is slightly varied because I do happen to work with gamut of publishers. So what invariably happened was, and I think the basic yardstick would be that the publishing process has slowed down. It did slow down then, and what also happened was that even now I think we are yet to fully come out of it, because what has happened is that because there were books that were lined up for publishing, those that were signed in 2019 supposed to come out in 20 or 21, even after the situation has become better medically, there is a huge backlog of titles that all publishers have. So the point is that if they're signing someone today, that person will probably have to wait for a year and a half or 2 years because someone else has waited for that much time, and it's only fair that books come out chronologically, because what was signed earlier will come out then, because if you bring out too many books together, the risk a publisher runs is that not all books will be equally successful. So you need to give all books that much time so that, you know, they can have their space in the sun and they can make the most of it. What I'd also like to add is that, you know, what I saw was that some of the younger publishing houses in the country really, you know, played in a smart way. So, you know, what happens is that with big publishing houses, you have a very strong marketing team and you have people, you know, distributing it. So, as both of them rightly mentioned, that because the bookstores were shut, distribution in the offline medium had taken a severe hit. So, what a lot of these younger publishing houses did, those who predominantly sell on online portals like Amazon or Flipkart, and who have till now not run away, are still there, at least for that period. But what happened was that, you know, they started selling the books over there. And what really happened was that for the first time ever, you know, a new debuting author could actually be at par with a 10-time best-selling author.
Yeah, yeah.
So for example, say Ruskin Bond, for example, right? Now, because why this new author was at par with him was because earlier, Mr. Bond's book would be available pan-India. Now, his book was also available on the same platform, and Mr. Bond's book was also available on the same platform. So it brought them at a level playing field. And if that author was able to market and promote his book well, there was a high chance that for that particular title, his book could even outsell any stalwart in the industry.
Yeah,
so
true.
that was something that happened. It gave birth to a lot of authors who did really well. Books sold. You are a case in point yourself.
Absolutely.
Your book did so well, being good enough. So, you know, I think it's also important to find opportunity in adversity. It sounds like an opportunistic statement in a normal context, but over here it's in a very positive zone, because, you know, what you also need to understand is that we are in the trade. Like, a literary agent knows both sides of the spectrum. So while we understand, you know, the challenges, issues, and very, you know, issues which are very logical that a publisher faces, what also happens is that one also has to deal with, you know, the patience level of authors.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to wait for a year, 2 years, 3 years to see your book out, because at the end of the day, it's a labor of your love. So I think it's important to see who can wait, who cannot, who's open to trying newer methods, who would like to stick to the tried and tested manner, and then find the right mix for them.
Yeah, that's great. Great lessons from all your experiences. Shifting track a little bit. Suhail, I'll ask you, I've heard you talk about this before, but you know, the relative successes of various genres. I mean, like, every time I talk about, I'm a fiction writer myself, and then when somebody tells me that fiction doesn't sell as well as non-fiction does, naturally it sort of disappoints me. I feel personally hurt.
Right.
And but still, there is a reason for it. Readers are veering more towards the non-fiction books. In that too, you know, political memoirs, reinterpretations or recasting of history, self-help books, these are doing better business. In fiction, there is a lot, you know, there's an upsurge of stories which are offshoots of mythology and, you know, adaptations from that. What is your thinking on that? I mean, how do you see that changing? And after that, I would like to ask you, Manjari, I mean, like, but maybe we'll let Suhail answer this question first. So how do you see the relative weightage of these genres changing?
Okay. So see, as far as authors are concerned, I think most authors would like to write what they're adept at. You know, that is the natural inclination that everyone has, and rightly so, because if there is something that comes naturally to you, you should write that. Because if you're writing for the market, then, you know, there is a high possibility that the quality will take a beating. So it's very important to do that. And in fact, there's this example that I keep on mentioning that, when I did my first book, The Pair of Putras, it was in the historical mythological space, and fortunately at that point of time, Amish's book had also come out and it was doing well. So a lot of people asked me that, oh, are you writing it because XYZ has done a book? And I said, no, look, firstly, my books come out a few months later, so there's no possible way that I would have thought about it, written it, and now it's getting published, because it takes its own course. But what, and it's just my good fortune that the genre is doing well. But what also happened was that there were a lot of people who were looking at it as an opportunity, So I happened to read this book, which was a mythological fantasy set in the present day and age, but had mythology at its backdrop. The first line of which was, 326 BC, Lord Ram and Ravan were in combat with one another. So 326 BC was actually when Chandragupta Maurya was there, in India. So what does that prove? That proves that it's A, not only bad writing, but B, it's also bad editing. Right, because if somebody has written it, there should be someone to correct that. So what that shows is that, there will be some books that are written to keep the market in place and, make the most of it. And that is where, you may suffer, because the first time around your friends, family and relatives may, buy the book. But when you write another one, the response may not be similar. So the idea is to increase the longevity of your writing career, right? And if you bring out good quality stuff, you will have, your own set of readers. What I always feel about non-fiction and fiction and the divide between them is that, personally, I feel that, writing a book is 50% story and 50%, converting it in the written word. So when you're doing a work of fiction, the author is doing 100% of that. When you're doing non-fiction, the story is already there. So true. So you have to do 50% of the work. So that's one. But my motivation to do fiction, and as I was mentioning yesterday also, I think one of the very few literary agencies in India who do fiction on a regular basis, and that is because I feel that these stories are absolutely fantastic. I was discussing it with my wife as well. I was going through these one-pagers that these authors send out, and such fantastic stories, creativity to the highest level. And just because some other person may not be in a position to take it up should not affect my decision making, because my decision as a literary agent should first be on whether the written material connects with me or not. And if the content can connect with me, I should take it up and see where best it can be placed. Right?
So in fact, I would just as an extension ask you, Rashmi. So very often, I think, as what we are doing is actually creating works of art, right? So sometimes I think of Van Gogh painting away, in his frenzies, and then being so utterly frustrated that nobody acknowledged the greatness of his work. And look at us, we're still enjoying. We get so much joy from, just standing in front of all his artwork. I sometimes think of Jane Austen, writing furiously away in her parlor, sort of buffing out all the chit-chat that probably she was surrounded by, and frustrated that her books couldn't connect with as many readers at her time. But look at the market for Jane Austen. It's sort of transcended generations, continents, societies, because there is that quality to it, and the power of observation, the power of tapping into human characters and all their traits and their quirkiness, etc. So that quality of writing is really extremely important. And so even if a genre is not doing well, if the manuscript that has come to you, it has that mark of quality, how would you balance the two?
See, you cannot associate monetary value with good writing, is what I believe in. But unfortunately, publishing is a very serious business. Everything comes down to numbers. Earlier, when I had just joined publishing, it was the editor who used to take the decision, oh, this is a fantastic manuscript, such lovely writing, we have to do this. And the publisher would say, okay, let's go ahead. But now the tables have turned. Even if we like it, It's the sales and marketing team who decides ये बिकेगी कि नहीं बिकेगी.
Correct.
That is the number one question. But as far as fiction is concerned, and I have some really, really lovely fiction writers, but unfortunately, because of the way the business is right now, we're not able to publish them, even if they're writing really well. But I believe in one thing very strongly, and it's the rule of physics. What goes up will come down. So even if non-fiction is selling today very well, after a point this is going to exhaust. There will be
Yeah.
a saturation point, and then all this lovely fiction writing that is sitting in someone's drawer, that is going to get published.
Amen.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think it is a cyclical process. 3
Yes.
to 4 years ago, non-fiction wasn't, at its peak, and since then it has. So as she rightly said, the tables will turn, and I think the Indian reader will find their lost love.
And
for
Indian authors will be a little bit, just breathe a little easy.
100%.
Yeah.
I think Indian authors are hugely underrated. We have
Yeah.
such brilliant writing, not just in English,
Exactly,
but in
that-
our vernacular
Yeah, that's
languages
actually
too.
what I was just going to come to,
Yeah, yeah.
because I mean, like you both talked about translation work, but all of it comes from, initially from the English language into our languages. I was just thinking along the quirkier lines of, maybe why not translate literature from Malayalam into
It is
Marathi.
now. Tombs of Sand is an example.
Yeah, Tombs of Sand is, but
It was written in
it was
Hindi
written in
originally,
Hindi.
yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that howsoever languages and our inability to read in each other's languages might sort of impair us from getting together. When you read stories from different cultures and different societies, you know that it's a different struggle, it's a different set of people with a different cultural vibe, but ultimately there is a lot of overlap as well, in terms of human values, goals, aspirations and all that. So, how do you see this translation work interregional translation work working out in the future? Yeah, both of you.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, please.
I am always of an opinion to have an inter-regional translation to happen. Within India, we have so much to translate and get the books, Now that we've started with our Marathi translation getting into English, and even other languages getting into English or maybe other languages. Yesterday even Sudha Murthy said that she has published 42 books, but then there are 200 plus of all different languages has been published. Right? So that's an example. Similar kind of books where we feel, in fact we are doing our own Marathi books into English. We are doing our own English books into Marathi. So we did one in Gujarati, but then what happens is the distribution becomes difficult for which I think Manjul could do it because they are in all states and all languages. So that is what we always admire about Manjul, they get so many titles in so many
and there is so much robust writing in India.
There is.
It's a long traditions of literature in every state.
But again, what happens is, the choice is only of the bestsellers first. Reason because the translation cost itself is so high by the time the book is translated, and all those literature books are the number of pages. I'm coming on to commercials because the number of pages increase, the translation cost increase, the printing increases, and if all these costs are going to go high, then will that sell that much? If that sells that much, then it is worth doing that. So those translations have stopped or not happening much because of the cost associated. If government helps the publishers to at least get the translation work done, right? The printing and distribution can be done by the publishers. So we are ready for that, but then the funding is needed for translation because it's a huge cost per page. It costs a bomb. So
maybe it should be supported.
2-3 lakhs plus is one book translation. So where do we get that? It all depends on the number of pages. But we do our own English to Marathi and Marathi to English because what sells more and the number of bookstores in every state. I've visited entire India. Right, what sells in Maharashtra is Marathi. You will count number of bookstores in English bookstores in Maharashtra. Right. Similarly, I go to Gujarat. I have almost all districts I have gone, I have tried to place my books. Again, you count number of bookstores, only they keep English books. Rest all they want to have. I go to Karnataka, I go to all these places. You have very countable.
Yeah.
Last week only 8th November I was in Kerala. In 1 hour's time I went all the bookstores. But there are only 2-3 bookstores who could keep English books. Rest all regional language.
Yeah. Naturally.
That's where everything has stopped. Right?
Yeah. Would you like to add something to it?
I think either the bookstores were less or he had a really fast driver.
Any city you go, any city.
Yeah, very few.
Mark me, any city you go, all the bookstores are within the vicinities of 5 to 6 kilometers because they have to be in the city. If they are outside the skirts of the city, nobody would travel and buy books over there. Who has time nowadays? Kerala is a very small place where I had gone, Trivandrum. It's a very small place. You start in an auto rickshaw and every 2-3 minutes, within a kilometer or two, all bookstores are there. I have the entire list now also in my pocket, right? And they are also in very difficult position now. Somebody says we've stopped this because of the pandemic. Somebody says we only do exhibitions, so only during exhibitions I'll buy. Somebody would say something else. Somebody would say our distributor now whom we were working with, so we don't want direct distribution. These are all facts. If authors are here, I'm speaking because there's a fact. She's an editor. I don't know whether she goes in the market or not, but I go in the market. They say our distributors has closed down, so we've stopped taking any books which are from outside. One answer was, we've stopped everything. We've stopped all, even paid display we've stopped. Paid display. Can you imagine a bookstore saying that if I pay you 10,000 for the display, says we've stopped even that also.
Yeah.
So this is the answers that I'm getting, I'm sharing, I'm very open and blunt. This is what the fact is. So there's a difficulty. So, but regionals are doing more. So we should go into regionals. We should go into the regional, and if any author gets that regional connectivity done, if you're staying in some Gujarat, you do it in Gujarati, your book might do more in Gujarati than in English. I'm sure, and I'm dead sure it will happen. Just think of it and it will do. It will connect more. I have sold Meera Boronkar's book, that is Leaves of Life, that we had done. In English we could do few thousands. The same book we did in Marathi, we sold 30,000.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
That's the connect.
Yeah.
That's the connect.
Would
people, even, it's different, people are, trying to, suicide, and they read the book and they call the author and say, I've stopped because I read your book. That connection, that writing is good, your book will do good.
Correct.
A good story will always connect with the reader. And why should language be a barrier? Yeah, and that is why publishers like Vishwakarma and so many other publishers who are in the vernacular scene will continue to do well, in my opinion. And coming back to your question, there is fantastic vernacular literature, but unfortunately most of the Indian readers are attracted by English books. So when it's these books are marketed very well. So say for example, Atomic Habits, it's there everywhere. You open Instagram, you see Jay Shetty. So then when that appears in a vernacular language, immediately it's lapped up. So we published all these books in multiple languages and they're huge bestsellers. It all comes down to marketing. So what we have to do is, since each of us speaks English as well as another vernacular language, we have to encourage authors who write in that language. It's only readers and us who can do that. And who encourages vernacular languages the most? Indian Railways. You go to the smallest railway station, there will be a chotu sa bookshop there with vernacular language authors' books displayed proudly.
Correct.
So we must encourage that. It is in our hands only.
When you're talking about, in fact, that sort of gave me a segue to the next question that I wanted to ask about, is that marketing is now the big buzzword. I mean, it has been for quite a while. In fact, traditionally, publishers would do the entire marketing of the book. The authors just had to write the book. They just took care of the creativity of it. The editors polished it, sorted it out, all the errors and the styles, etc. But the marketing headache was entirely the publishers. Now when I submit a proposal to publish, I also have to attach a marketing plan, along with it, which is so difficult for me. It's not my area of expertise at all. So, Suhail, what do you think? I mean, like, if traditional, we are actually departing from the traditional format of traditional publishing by expecting authors to build up that marketing plan. And as an additional auxiliary question, now because we have to do that, we are now resorting to social media. We are using it as a tool for marketing, garnering, trying to boost visibility of our product and hoping that more and more people will be tempted to buy it. But as Suhail once very famously said, 1,000 likes on Facebook it might do very well to boost the author's morale, but until and unless it translates into actual sales, from the publisher's point of view, those 1,000 likes are completely irrelevant. Would you like to say something? Yeah.
Sure, ma'am. So I think it's a valid question, and I think the job of the literary agent is basically to apprise the author of how the market functions. So these are learnings that we've also had, on our own. I remember it was, I think in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, I was sitting at a very well-known publisher's office, and we were discussing certain titles, and we were telling them, look, this is a great book, and you must take it up, and all those kind of things. So there were two things that the lady at the publishing house asked me. A, who's the author? Can you give me a background about the author? And B, what is the kind of marketing that the author would do? Basically, what that made me aware of was the fact that a publisher can only bring out as many books in a month, right? So if he has 10 good books, and the assumption is that if they're shortlisting a particular book, it will be good, which is why they're shortlisting it. But they cannot publish all 10. They have to publish 3. Then how do they go about it? The stories are all good. What's the next yardstick? The next yardstick would be who's written it. Is that person well versed in the genre that they are writing in? Are they a credible name? If they are a credible name, because the bio is then linked to the marketing plan, because what is that person bringing to the marketing space? How are they going to promote the book? Because as I mentioned that an author is writing 1 book in a year. A publisher is bringing out 4 books in a month. So there's only as much time a publisher can give to a particular project. So their marketing is possibly the distribution. But to ensure that a reader picks up a book from there is the author's marketing. So I don't really put a right or wrong connotation, because it's not my place to do so. Probably both of them would be in a better position to respond to it. My job is to make the author aware of it, simply because that is the nature. In India, publishers determine how the market works. So if you're not informing the author of it, you are depriving them of an opportunity to send out the best possible version of their proposal. And if you are able to send it out, you never know that the plan may work, in your favor. If you're not sending out a proposal, it does not mean that your book will not be selected.
Yeah.
But you would rather play a fully fit Virat Kohli than an injured one.
Yeah.
So that is basically what it is about, and I think both of them can add to it.
I think that's the first time anybody has compared me to Virat Kohli. And I'm flattered.
I just want to add one thing. I'd like to put it across in a different way. I call it teamwork, and we are stronger together. If I have Suhail pitching his authors and pitching his marketing ideas to me, my book, to me, like as a commissioning editor, as the managing editor, my book feels stronger. That book feels stronger. Okay, I feel more confident about that book. So that's how I would like to see it.
Yeah.
I will add to it,
Yeah,
if you
please,
don't mind.
sure. He's, yeah.
Suhail was not sitting in my office when he, came up with this plan.
That's why I said
See, I'll put it other way around. We never saw marketing plans, we always saw the content of the book. Now we see marketing plans because, as she rightly said, it's a teamwork. And I'm always of an opinion, when an author speaks about the book, the message is passed very clearly to the reader what the book is about. When I talk about the book, a general, tendency of thought is, he's marketing his book, isme kuch to rahega. So they take it other way around.
Yeah.
So I always say that the author should speak, we should distribute. The reason behind it is they know the fact that the author is speaking. Yes, the book has the content. Oh, that is what it is. They will be able to more give details in a better manner than what we can give. We have our limitations, right? Now, if I say 600 books, you come to my stall, I'm standing there, I can only speak 2 minutes, 3 minutes of each book. What is it about? What is it not about? But then if you start asking me question about that books, I won't be able to answer. So it is the author, one. Two, we don't want authors to spend money in marketing. We don't want authors to spend money in marketing. Earlier days were there when authors used to go and have, speeches around, and then that's how the promotion would happen. We want authors to connect with people. For example, today you are here, you are also an audience over here, you are, around here in the ground. Talk to people, meet people. I have published this book. Would you like to read this book? This is what it is. Everybody hears for the love of the book. Who would say no to you? But you should at least speak. You should not sit here. I have published, my author, publisher will do. It is not going to happen. If author can't speak, then how would we speak, That's what is the requirement. And that's why many a times we have such platforms for authors to speak. Come and speak.
Yeah.
This is what the platform is all about.
Actually, after having done a few marketing plans myself, I've come to understand the concerns of publishers better than I probably was aware of before. And I think, as you said, for something else, it is teamwork.
It has
when
to be.
I am speaking about my book, I speak with the passion that I had when I wrote it. But at the same time, when the publisher endorses my book in a marketing campaign, it shows the validation of my work, that there is a mark of validation, which is so valuable. Anyway, I think we are going to be running out. I have plenty more questions.
I just wanted to add on a lighter note.
Yeah.
Readers are sick of publishers. Like बार-बार books के बारे में बोलती रहती है. So when we say something about books, उतना impact नहीं है. But when the author says it, they're like, oh, somebody new, something new.
Yeah.
So that also makes a difference.
True.
I'll just add to it. I know we are running out of time, but it is very important for authors to know what publishers think. What we can do is, I'm being very open and clear, right? We have platforms like this. We participate. We display all our books. You go to stall number 7, you'll find all my Marathi books also over here. I don't know which author would love Marathi and they'll pick up a book in Marathi. I participate in New World Book Fair, New Delhi. I participate in Calcutta Book Fair. I participate in Imphal, Bhubaneswar. I participate in Lucknow. I participate in wherever the book fairs are there. This is my expertise. Getting books in bookstores is my expertise. This is what I can do. I can't spend money on all books by advertising in newspapers or wherever it's possible. It's not possible, not feasible, and not practical. One advertisement costs ₹1,00,000 in a newspaper, so it is not possible and feasible. So if an author wants to come up with all those things, he has his plans. Okay, if I spend so much money in advertising and this is what the demand is going to be created, yes, I'm ready for that. So my job will be seeing it to placing it on the bookstores. That connection, that logistics is what a publisher has to do. If you think the publisher has to do some advertisements, I think you should stop thinking all that and not write.
Okay, I think maybe
we still have about 5 minutes. We can have some questions from the floor, please.
So I think you can tell your name, ask your question, and also to whom you want to ask that
whom
question.
you're addressing the question to. Yeah.
I think that,
Could you just pass the mic, the lady at the back?
the working one.
Yeah, the working one, I know. Yeah. Your name and who your question is addressed to.
My name is Natasha. My question is for Mr. Soni. Sir, do you, in your roadmap for Vishwakarma publications, are you looking at kind of hybrid publications right now?
Are you looking at hybrid?
We've started with hybrid publications, so we can always work on it. We're already doing both kind of publishing because, as I said, that we need to survive in market. So we have started hybrid publishing. Yes, sir.
We talk a lot about translation from English to vernacular languages. We see Atomic Habits, Stephen Covey in every railway station we go. But how much are we doing the other way around? Taking books from the vernacular languages, converting it into English, thereby giving it a much bigger reach. How successful is that?
Not very, not right now, but I do have a lot of hope We have done a few books from Malayalam and some other languages, but it's still not where it should be. So that's why I was saying we Indians have to encourage our own languages. We have to advertise those books. Only then would it come to the attention of publishers and they'll get it translated. So yeah, it is not as it should be right now.
Sir, NBT does a lot of translations in various languages. So they have committees, and the committees are given a job to select some books which would be good for their regional area. So NBT picks up a lot of books every year, and they think what is to be translated. So nobody influences them for the translations. So that is still happening. So that's the best thing that is happening in India. You know, they pick up any book and they will translate in the language they want. So there were many authors of mine. Yesterday only, I think Kulpreet's book was taken up for Hindi. He never knew that it is going to happen in Hindi. So NBT took it up and they translated that book in Hindi. Similarly, NBT takes up and translates that in various Indian languages. So that could happen. So you never know. But I have one opinion, every state has to have a department in publishing house where they would like to translate their good books, regional books in multiple languages out of India.
Exactly.
That is what I am of a strong opinion, that the government, every state government should come up. They have to come up with a consortium where they are working for their literature language to be translated in multiple languages.
Correct.
That funding has to come. The way it comes from so foreign the countries, they have so much of funding for their, you know, German language or French language coming into India.
We don't have.
They pitch books. So why can't an Indian do the reverse way? We are doing. NBT is doing. We give them books. They take it to multiple countries. So our many books are displayed in so many countries, but they are not taken up. Maybe, you know, we are not able to convey the synopsis of that book. They are displayed in so many Frankfurt, they are displayed in so many international languages. We have all those catalogs with us, but we are not able to convey that. With the convince that, yes, this book is good, you translate it in French, you translate it in German, you translate in this. So it is not happening. That is what I feel, that if that comes up now, the best ever literature is Indian literature, sir.
Great. Amen. So
But just to add to what you're saying, I think you need to understand that English is one of the most recent languages in India.
Yeah.
You know, it has started only with the advent of the Britishers here.
Yeah.
All the other languages have been there since time immemorial. So there is that much more literature which is available. And it's a good point that you've brought up, because that is what we actively seek to do. Because if there is good literature, the idea is to bring it out to the larger audience as possible. Because as he said, probably, you know, books in Marathi would be read by people from the region. But for someone who does not know the language, you know, will never have access to that good story. So it is important that we find those stories and bring it out in English. And we're doing a lot of work with authors, you know, who are translating these well-known books in their respective regions. We've taken a lot of books from the Bengali and we bring it out. There's an author of mine who's doing works of Bibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay. He's bringing it out. You know, wonderful stories, engaging stories. Just a couple of weeks ago, we sold a 4-book deal of Kalki Krishnamurthy's series. Of course, Kalki's come back in vogue with the Ponniyin Selvan releasing. So this was another series, you know, which is about Sivagami's Wow. And, you know, so Penguin's taken that up. So again, there is a renewed interest, because when we're talking about bestsellers, you know, Vishal was talking about a book to become a bestseller in English and then he's translating it into regional, which is a tougher job for a book to become a bestseller in English first, because the competition is so much more. Because the competition is lesser and, you know, the print runs are also slightly lesser, you know, region-wise, a book to become a bestseller there, you know, helps a lot. And then a publisher would want to bring it out in English so that more people can know about it. So I think that is very important, because you mentioned Tomb of Sand. I think Tomb of Sand does not need the validation of a Booker Prize. You know, Booker Prize is one of the conditions that these prizes have is strongly based on region, where an author resides. So if you are in, you know, a particular continent, you are only eligible to apply for that prize then. So we do not need the validation of Westerners to say that, you know, the book is good. That book was brought out in Hindi and it was accessible to so many more people, and also brought out in English and read. Just because somebody else is saying it's good, you know, outside doesn't make it good. We created the good content, so we should be more proud of that. And we don't need a validation of an award, because an award can only be given to one.
Yeah,
But the quality of all books can be good.
correct. Great. I think that's it.